Hi everyone, welcome to Eliza Priddle Equestrian and the Foal course. It is day 2 and you can see our little guy Gangster he's just gotten up to have a drink, so I've timed it pretty well. He was just asleep when I got here. In the foreground you can see Luna, who loves to be a part of everything. Now we have moved the mare back into her main paddock. She's no longer in the house yard, which we had her in nice and separate and safe for everybody, and nice and easy for us to get access to. She's now in a really big acreage paddock and you can see she is with other horses. This is little Luna, who loves to stick a nose into everything, and she was bought around the same time that Luna was bought. That Freya was bought, but she came from a breeder and she's just turned 12 months old, so she's a Clyde cross and she's going to be a big filly, big mare as well. She'll try her best, I'm sure, to steal our shot today. But yes, so she's back in with other horses. She's doing a fantastic job. If you follow me on Facebook, Eliza Priddle Equestrian, you'll see I'm just sharing some posts here and there where she's doing a really good job protecting her foal. He's fantastic. He's running around like a lunatic, being a typical foal, and we've got our left and right lead canners plus our flying changes already established, which is fantastic. You can see Freya's doing really well as well. She's coming up today. I'm cheating. I do have a bucket, but it doesn't have anything yummy in it. It's just got my ropes and things, but because I have a bucket there, she's come up to say hi, as has the little guy, and I have to keep him away from the camera. I'm doing my best to keep everybody away from the camera right now. So today what I'm going to do, day 2 we introduced the halter, but it's not in order to use the halter, okay? The foal wrap goes back on him, so we have the chest rope and the bum rope around him, the rump rope around him, and that's what we maneuver the horse with. The horse is still way too young to have a halter on. Absolutely can have a halter on, but I won't be pulling them around by it. They're still very reactive, they're still extremely playful, so I don't want to be hanging on to his head and him flip out and break his neck or something crazy like that. So at this point in time, I leave it another, at least another week before I actually attach anything and hang on to that halter. He will be taught to yield on the halter, to give to pressure, and you'll see that today. But it's mostly done whilst having the foal wrap on him. So we'll do that shortly. He's not been handled since, other than what we've been into the paddock to do the work with the mare. He hasn't been handled since, so everything you're seeing again is absolutely live the next session. The only thing I have been doing, and I'm really particular about this, is not letting him lean on me. Foals will naturally, for security, if their mare runs really quickly, say to chase another horse or to run away from something, the foals will actually lean on the mare as they're running, and it's to touch, to keep with her and to try and stay comfortable. So they naturally have a tendency to lean on you. They'll come in and they'll push. I don't allow that. It's really fun at this age, but when they're 500, 600, 700 kilos, it's not fun at all, and they start treading on your feet. So I stop it now, and all I use is just a little light finger pressure. He's going to have a lay down, which is good because I've got a bit more talking to do. A little bit of light finger pressure to poke him. I do not lean on him because he will lean back, and as he gets heavier, he will learn to lean, and they can actually move our feet. And if he moves me out of the way, he wins, and he will very quickly learn to push me, which lots and lots of horses have issues with anyway. So I poke him rather than push him, and I poke him, and the moment he comes off that pressure, I stop. All right, so if he comes in and leans on me, I'll push, and then he leaves, I quit poking. I don't poke him and go with him and make him more and more uncomfortable. I just poke when he leans on me, and then he's away. All right, the release of pressure is the most important thing to know, to understand with horses. They learn when you stop doing what you're doing. So by asking them, you're actually just activating movement. You're not teaching them anything. It's when you stop doing it that they will think about it. They'll have a lick and chew, and even at this age they will lick and chew with their mouth, and that's sort of a sign that they're digesting the information, for want of a better description. So he's sound asleep here. I'm just going to move the video and you can see he's absolutely sounders, having a snooze, and it's really cool to have a foal as comfortable as that, to be able to come right next to you and lay down, right where you are, with buckets and tripods and all sorts of things around. So I'm just going to, while he's sleeping, and again, remember we're doing this on his time. I am not going to get him up. I'm going to just simply work on his time frame. When he's up, I'll work with him. When he's down, I'll let him sleep. When he's drinking, I'll let him drink. So I'm just going to take you through while he's asleep the process that I'm going to teach over these 5 days. So the value of these 5 days is enormous. Again, you're setting the horse up for success for the rest of its life, and it's really important to understand how vital this training is. So the first thing we go through is we imprint the foal, and that is a very light amount of touch before the foal has raised up off the ground and taken its first steps. Remember, we are, and you saw it in the previous video, please go back and watch it if you can. You saw me touch him, he reacted, and I kept touching him until he stopped quivering and shaking and wanting me to stop, and then as soon as he relaxed, I stopped doing it, all right? And that means now that while he's sleeping like he is now, if I go up and touch him, I'm not going to shock him. He's used to the touch and he's relaxed, and he actually really likes it. He likes it so much that we just had a couple of friends come and see him with 2 young children or teenage girls, and they wanted to see him, and I had to keep pushing him away because he was a little too confident. He was like standing in the middle of everybody and saying, "Can somebody please put their hands on me?" So whilst that's not a bad thing, I don't want him to be too confident and start pushing people around. So the first thing we do is we imprint the foal, and that's just getting them used to touch in all areas, on all areas of the body, over the face, the neck, the body, the legs, and under the tail. So we do that before the foal is standing up. Once the foal is standing and we can start to work with it, we then introduce, while we've got close contact with the mare, so when we're introducing the foal wrap, we want to have the mare in hand if we can with somebody else holding her. And that's pretty much because it's a brand new foal. She's a little, iffy and touchy, and it just makes it a whole lot easier for you guys to handle her. So we introduce the foal wrap on day 1. So we imprint, introduce the foal wrap. On day 2, the foal wrap is starting to be used to ask the horse to move forward. He already knows how to move back because in standing still, he moves back a lot, so he already knows how to move back off the chest pressure. But on day 2, I'm going to start, and you'll see this today, I'm going to start asking him to walk forward with me with the foal wrap on. So I'm putting pressure on his rope, and he's coming forward off that pressure. I also introduce the halter, which is a rope halter. I've got it here in my back pocket. And I always use rope halters. It doesn't mean you have to. Your standard webbing halters are fine, but remember, naturally horses will lean. And if it's a big, wide, flat band, which is what webbing halters are, the horse can actually push against it. Whereas these rope halters, they'll push, but they won't want to push too hard. So they'll come off the pressure and they'll learn to be a whole lot lighter, a whole lot quicker. So we're introducing the halter, and you'll see it's about him putting his face into the halter. It's not about me wrangling it onto his face. I want it to introduce it and hold it. You'll see this when he gets up. I'm going to introduce it and hold it, and I want him to put his nose in and get used to the fact that it's over his nose. Lots and lots of foals have problems with putting that rope over their nose, and it's just uncomfortable. It blocks their sight. When you're putting your hand and holding the rope over there, it blocks their sight, and they're swished and carry on. It's why it's important to have the foal wrap so you can hold them still and you don't lose them. And because if you put that on there and he pulls away from it, he'll very quickly learn not to be haltered and pull away from the pressure of the halter. So I want to have that on there until he settles, and then I'm going to take it off. Again, when we finish when we stop doing what we're doing is when the horse learns, okay? So I'm going to put a halter on him today, and you'll see that fairly shortly. And the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start teaching him to yield left and right with the neck rope. All right, so it's further up on his neck, not the chest as we have been doing. That's for backwards. We can do front end yields with the chest rope, but I'm going to start to get him to yield left and right so that when I do put the halter on and start to ask to follow the feel of the halter, he'll sort of understand what that is, even though he's got to learn it off his nose, but he'll understand it from off his neck when we do the foal wrap. So I'm hoping fairly shortly he's going to jump up. You can see his little head there. He's starting to liven up a little bit. I'm super happy with this little guy. He's been really healthy and been doing everything just by the book, and the mare's been great as well. So he's been a real textbook foal, this one, which is an absolute blessing. Just going to grab my rope here, and as soon as he pops up, there he goes. Again, completely timed it perfectly. They're pretty well completely predictable at this age. So I'm going to pop the wrap on him. Good boy. Hello. And he's really good now. He may be a little boisterous because he's just gotten up. He'll be pretty playful. He may be a little boisterous, but I'm just going to step back if I can. Good boy. Got the back up sorted. He may be a little boisterous right now because he's just gotten up, and normally as soon as they get up they have a drink, but he did come directly to me, which gives me permission to do a little bit before he goes and has a drink. He's having a scratch on the rope there. So just introducing the halter. As I said to you, I want him to put his face into it. So I'm going to introduce it just like that. And I want him to play with it. I want him to put it on his own face, because if I go and try and jam that on his face, there you go, he's pushing into it. There he's essentially just put the halter on himself. If I go and try and jam that onto his face, he's just calling his mum, which means he wants a drink. So I'm going to let him go and have a drink. Again, on his timeline, we are going to do this. He's just gotten up. Drinking is the first thing they do when they get up. So I'll just reposition the camera in a second when he's had his drink. I don't like to interfere, and this, I'm quite different to a lot of other trainers in that sense. A lot of other trainers say, I'll just get it done and then let him go. I don't like to interfere in the relationship that the mum and foal have. If he's calling out to his mum then, and he was really light, he wasn't pulling on me, but he was calling out to his mum, it means he wants her, okay? If I start to restrict that, he's going to relate that to me, restrict it, holding him back from the main comfort that he has, and that's going to create a relationship of stress while he's in my company, and that's the last thing I want to introduce into his life. So I have to be, I'm very, very particular about, I think it was Ray Hunt that used to say, don't stir up the dust. I don't want to create stress when there is no need to. Yes, absolutely, I've got things to do, losing light, all these other reasons that I need to get this done. I don't care. I'll, you know, work with a torch and in the dark if I have to, because getting the horse stress-free and learning to be fear-free is way, way more important than any timeline I could ever set. I've got this horse for the rest of his life. He's important to me. I may as well take the time it takes now and get it done properly than stress him, create a fight, create a panicked horse. I'll lose him because he's not small, and then he'll learn to pull away from me, and he'll relate that stress directly back to me. So I will not at any stage override the natural instinct for a foal to go to its mare. Now, if once he's had his drink and he's boisterous and wants to run around, then I'm going to say to him, hey mate, can you stay here? But if it's stress like he needs his mum, that's a completely different thing. I'm just chasing a horse away from my tripod here. Okay, so once he's had his drink, I'm going to just turn the camera around and pop him back in the foal wrap, and you'll see, I might not have to, he might come to me. And you'll see again, introducing that halter is a pretty easy thing to do when we do it right. I want him to look at this and go, oh, what is that, and be curious about it, not see it and be fearful of it because I've jammed it onto his face and scared him with it. So just going to he's just lay down right on his mum's back leg. All right, having a nice lazy afternoon here, so I'm just going to turn the tripod here a little, guys. And as they always say, never work with animals or children because it never goes right. But, and I said to you initially that I was a little nervous about doing this because I am doing it all live, and you know, you can be halfway through something and he need to go his mum. That's all just part of it, and it's part of the patience that we need to learn as a horse trainer. I like to do things on horses' timeline. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer, I won't win any speed competitions, but I will have horses for the rest of their life that are stress-free and fear-free animals, and that's more important to me than any timeline I could set. So I'm just going to wait for him to finish here. He's just gotten up again. He shouldn't need much of a drink this time because he'd already had one, and then I'm going to go and wrap him and continue on with the training of the halter and also yielding. And the other thing is, I'm really, you want the horse to be two-handed, left and right-handed, which means you have to be. So I'm going to do the foal wrap. So I did the foal wrap on the other side of him. I'm going to do it on both sides so he gets used to it on both sides. Good boy. So because he's walked in, I can now wrap him. Good boy. I was on the other side of him just earlier. I'm now on his right, left side, the on side, but I don't want a horse to be one-sided. There you go, little man. Okay, so again, I'm just going to introduce that, and I'm going to let him nuzzle his face into it. All right, so that he can play with it, he can enjoy it, and he can learn that it draped over his head is not forcing anything. He's just finding it. So if I put it over here, he should come and find it and play with it. If I put it over here, this is all on his terms. What he's learning is that this is not a fearful object that creates any sort of stress for him. He's interested in it, he'll check it out, he'll put his face in it. He's just pushed his face into it, okay? So he's just put the halter on. I don't know whether you can see that, but it's over his nose. All right, so now that he's got it over his nose, I'm just going to use the foal wrap to keep him from stepping back too far. And as soon as he relaxes into that, there, I take it off. So he's just learned that there's no stress in getting his face caught in it. It's actually a pretty easy thing to relax into. Good boy. And again, I'm not putting it on and tying it on. As I said in, I think it was in video, the first video, obviously the first video because it wasn't this one. If I lose him and he's got a halter on that's too big for him, doesn't fit him well, and I can't catch him again, I don't want him running around the paddock and get his hoof caught in it and hurting himself. So I am not tying it on as yet. All right, I am just getting him used to draping it over his face, and he's pretty comfortable with that now. And that's like 2 minutes, so that's how it should be. So there, if I just pop that over his nose, oh, he's taken it into his mouth, he's sucking on it. That's good. My 2-day-old foal is bitted. So he's actually chewing on that. That's good. I want that. I want him to be curious enough to check things out. Do not rouse on your foal at this age, putting things in their mouth. It's completely natural. They're going to check everything out. If you want to teach him not to chew on ropes, do that at a later stage. He's too young right now to be roused on for this. It's such an important part of their education that they can put things in their mouth. If I want to bit this horse later, I don't want him to be thinking he's in trouble. Here we go. He's literally chewing on it. So there, you can see I'm now throwing that over his head and rubbing his ears with it. And he's not bothered. He's actually being a little unusual. Normally they're quite bothered by that. So there you can see I'm just popping it over his ears. Just going to let him go, mainly because, I don't know whether you saw that, but his mum just chased the other horse away. And if she runs off rapidly, fair call for him to run off rapidly, all right? So I don't want to, again, I don't want to be related to holding him back there. I need to work it for him. So I just let him go there so that he could run and catch his mum, because he was a little stressed by that fact that his mum's taking off flat stick across the paddock. But I'm just going to walk back in. Now, what you'll notice is I work with this foal when he comes to me, all right? So if I'm in his vicinity, and it's dinner time, if I'm in his vicinity and he now, unfortunately, again, we're live, this is about a 7-acre paddock, and the feed bins are at the very, very front. So these guys have just decided that they're going to go over to the front and see if there's any tucker. So I'm just going to switch this off and go for the walk out the front and see if I can See if I can set up again. I won't take the video off because he's just having a little play right there. Yeah, okay. Sorry, we will pause and I will be back shortly. Hi guys, as you can see, I'm back in the studio this afternoon. The little bit of filming that I got after we finished with Freya in the last video really wasn't, you know, much of anything. He kept wanting to lay down. It was late in the afternoon. She was a little bit wandery as well. Every time he lay down, she'd wander off and he'd have to jump back up and catch her again. So I didn't persist. We done plenty of filming. There was 20 minutes of filming in the previous video that you just saw. So I didn't persist too much and I just left him alone. And you'll see we'll pick up again tomorrow exactly where we were today, and he'll be even better. So what I want to do is just spend the next little while going through some written work for you guys so you can actually take a few notes and understand the actual step-by-step process that I'm taking you through. I will be doing a downloadable PDF so that you will have these with you, but I just wanted to take you through the importance of each step and why we do them in the steps that we do them. So of course the first thing that we start with is the imprinting. And as I said to you in video 1, the imprinting is a little tiny bit of work. It's literally just getting the horse to respond positively to the touch rather than reactively. And it's under, you know, 2 or 3 minutes worth of work. I don't believe in restraining the horse while you imprint them. That's why we do the imprinting if we can before the horse actually can get up and walk. And that makes it a whole lot easier for us, but also easier for the foal to accept because they're still in sort of daze mode from being born, and mum has obviously already imprinted herself on them. So it's a really easy time to be doing the imprinting. So imprinting is the #1 stage, and the reason it's #1 is because it's the most vital. Even though it's the shortest amount of work that you will possibly ever do on your horse or your foal, it is the most important. As you've been seeing, Gangster has been super easy to do everything with. He was non-reactive at all when I ran my hands down his leg. Now that's not normal. When you're working with, and you may have experienced this in the past, when you're working with a foal and you touch its legs for the first time, they're often extremely reactive. They kick out, they stamp, they even can run away. So you can see how the imprinting makes it 1,000 times easier to touch any part of the horse's body. And remembering that the timing is important as well, because we want to only stop touching them when they have accepted the touch, not when they're still reactive to it. And you saw that in the video. I have done an extra little download for you in the video that we did while he was birthing. I couldn't get that onto the video series because it was just too in different format. It was too difficult to download. So I've done it as a separate format for you, separate video for you in a slightly different format, which means you still get to see the actual process that we took him through when he was a newborn. If you don't get to do that, then you're imprinting and the whole process becomes a whole lot harder. And this is why this is a newborn foal series, because this is the way to make it easier for everybody. If I can get to a foal the day it's born, then everything from then on becomes a breeze. If I'm having to do this at a week old, this is not an easy task, and you'll experience for yourself that you can't get near the foal anywhere near as easily as I've been able to get near Gangster. So if you do have that issue and you haven't been able to imprint the foal while it's young, then you have to at some stage be able to approach the horse while it's laying down, and again restraining the horse. And of course a baby's going to want to jump up when you get near it if it is scared. Restraining it is not the answer here. So we want to just go in very, very slowly and quietly, and if we can touch the horse very lightly and without too much reaction initially until they get used to the touch. Now that's going to be a hard task, and I'm going to try and get my hands on later in the season on a horse, a youngster that hasn't been handled at birth, and I'm going to take you through a process. But this video series is about a newborn foal, and you will experience a completely different relationship with a foal that you start from newborn as opposed to even weeks old. Is completely different relationship. So
This is specifically with a horse that a foal that you can get your hands on straight away. So the imprint series is number one. The second thing that we do is we teach them to stand and yield in the foal wrap, and that's the chest wrap and the butt wrap all at once in the figure of 8 with a light rope. Now you can use a normal 12-foot lead rope, a thicker style rope, and in fact, you know, they're often easier to handle because they're not as fine on your hands and they don't pull as much. But it's up to you what you use. It really doesn't matter. But what you'll see is you'll get a horse that's learns immediately. The moment, if they pull away and they get away, they've learned to pull away. So what you have to do is your timing has to be so good that you teach the horse that if he pushes forward into the chest rope, he can't get away. But the moment he comes back to you off that pressure, you need to drop the pressure off the rope. So the foal wrap is number 2, and that's something that you're going to use probably for the next 4 or 5 days. After the foal wrap, we introduce the ropes on his face so that he puts his face into the loop, which is preparation obviously for haltering, but later on it prepares the horse for taking a bit and bit and bridle if that's what you're going to do. I ride my horses bitless, but there's still a process of putting the bitless bridle over their face. So you can see in when we introduce it to Gangster that he has no problems with it at all. Again, that comes back to the imprinting that I did earlier, rubbing his face until he was non-reactive, putting my hands up over his ears, forward and back until he was non-reactive. Everything is 1,000 times easier if you've imprinted the foal to touch. And so once the haltering is accepted, and that is literally not putting it on, but just rubbing it over his face and getting him to play with it in his mouth and accepting that the halter is just part of his world. It's not something that's going to put pressure on him or stress on him. It's just something that just happens to be part of his world. Then you'll see we go into the haltering stage where we put the halter on. Again, safety is number 1 here. If you're putting a halter on a horse and you're scared of losing it, do not do it up, because you'll cause yourself more drama than not. If you've got a horse that's difficult to handle and you're scared of losing it, don't halter it until you've got it in a nice, decent sized round yard that you can spend some time waiting to catch the horse again. Again, not chasing it, but catching it as we have been with him, whereas approaching gently and waiting for him to come to you. So once we have haltered the horse, we teach the horse, before we halter the horse, we teach the horse to yield off the neck. So we're teaching him neck yielding, which is stepping to and from, towards me, to the left if I'm on the onside, and away from me to the right if I'm on the onside, and obviously the opposite if I'm on the offside of the horse. So the onside is the left side of the horse, and the offside is the right side of the horse. So once I've taught the neck yielding, then I can safely put the halter on, because the horse is learning that he can't get away and that yielding is the best option for him, and he's starting to work with you rather than against you. Once the halter's on, you'll see we're teaching without a lead rope. Now, I find this extremely important, and I stress that I do not at any point grab hold of a lead, attach a lead rope on and make the horse stay. Again, you've got a very young foal that will learn instantly, and if they pull away and they learn to pull away, you've taught them a really, really bad habit. So when the horse goes to pull away, if I'm holding on a lead rope, I tend to want to hang on to it. So I work in the halter, as you will see later in the series, without a lead rope on, and it's just teaching him to come off the pressure under his chin, left, right, forward and back. So then we do attach, once we've got the horse yielding in the halter, and it's called staying within the halter. Once we've taught him that, then we add the lead rope and we teach him to come with us, and we add the leading process to it. All of that should be just a step forward from what you've done previously. There should be no pressure on the horse. Obviously, there will at some stage be a point where that horse will want to take off and you have a lead rope in your hand. Now, at that point, you've got 2 options. The reason I work with a long lead rope is because I want to give the horse a little bit of slide. That is, I don't want to shut down the movement straight away. I want to get him a little bit of slide, and you'll see this, and I'll close my hand very slowly. I'm not going to grab and pull. I'm going to close my hand very slowly on the rope. So it gets harder and harder for him to get away. And if we've done the yielding teaching properly, he'll feel that and he'll stop and he'll come back off the pressure. And if you do that once and you catch that horse the first time he goes to run away, and you gently close your hand and he gently hits the end of the rope and comes off the pressure, you've literally taught your horse to stay with you. And the leading process from then on is a breeze. If the horse gets away from you, then you've got to go through the process a few more times before you can teach that foal that he can't pull away. Again, it's all with the foal's best interests at heart. If at all the foal is stressed, I want to unclip that lead rope and let it go to its mum. But if he's just doing it as a pull away from you, then of course we've got to work through it. Again, you're going to have to experiment. And part of working with foals, as I have done for the last 15 years, is to make mistakes and learn from it. And it's okay. You won't break him. You won't break your horse, your foal. You will learn from it, and you'll become a better trainer because of it. So don't be fearful of doing the wrong thing. Just be mindful of doing it for the horse instead of to the horse, and that'll change a whole lot of your attitude towards it. So I think that's all I need to cover today. As I said, I'm going to put out a PDF at the end of the series so that you've got this all written down. At any point, you can go back and watch all of these videos. They are going to be available to you from now on. And if there's any assistance that you need, please email us in and ask us any questions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can with any answers. And if I can, I'll also do a video of anything that you're struggling with your horse or your foal. If you're struggling to get something done, write me an email and I'll video a similar situation. Hopefully, if I've got a horse that does a similar thing, I can give you some examples of what I would do to try and fix that issue. So I hope you enjoyed day 2. We will be heading obviously to day 3 tomorrow, so stay tuned. We are due to have rain, so I'm hoping I don't get wet out there. If I do, that's okay. It's all part of it, and the little man will experience rain for the first time. But we will see you on the other side on day 3, guys. Thank you for joining us once again. Bye.